Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing your daily Walking Dead video for today, leading up to The Walking Dead Season 8. In this one, first, we're going to give our thoughts on a recent interview with Scott Gimple, where he said that we may actually still see Glen return. And spoiler warning, of course, if you're not caught up for Walking Dead up to the Season 7 finale. So going into Season 8, it still sounds weird to say Season 8. Although I am happy that The Walking Dead has got, 8 seasons at this point, because most shows don't get that far. And happy to see that it's probably going to continue on strong for a lot longer. So in this one, going to leave the link in the description as usual for you guys to undeadwalking.com. And yeah, this is a pretty cool one. So it says, here's Scott Gimple's big time response. So he was asked about Glen and whether or not we could see Steven Yeun reprise his role as Glen in the show. Of course, in some kind of, Abraham-esque dream sequence or hallucination, because obviously Glen has, been brutally killed off. He's been Lucille'd. So, it's what it is. Dumpster can't save him this time. He's gone for good. But we could see maybe a hallucination sequence or dream sequence. And about the chances, Scott Gimple said, pretty good, actually. As Maggie gets closer to giving birth, it's certainly possible that Steven Yeun might reprise his role for some newly created flashbacks or a vision or something. I'd be silly to say that it isn't. So this is one that we kind of gave our thoughts in a recent video on Monday, a recent episode we did after the Season 7 finale, about, maybe some things they could have done better in the finale. One of the things I mentioned was it would have been really cool to see in the final scene when you have Maggie kind of, giving her speech in the voiceover, and that, you have Maggie representing the Hilltop Rick and then Ezekiel there on the podium, so to speak, where they're speaking to everybody. If they could have had Steven Yeun come back to do like a dream sequence, or, kind of hold her hand or put his hand on her shoulder or something, and kind of a, transparent, like ghost type thing, that would have been really, really cool, man. And I think that would have just put the Season 7 finale over the top, and a lot more people would think it's like the best, the best finale they've done so far. But that said, of course, that didn't work out. They weren't able to do that. It sounds like they did have Abraham come back, which I thought was excellent and really added to the episode and really added to Sasha's death, versus if they weren't able to do that at all and they weren't able to include him at all, it would have taken away from it a lot. But so for this one, I really hope they can work it out with Steven Yeun. I really hope they can get him to come back. Almost no matter when they put it in, I guess it would make sense. Like he said, he's mentioning here when Maggie gets closer to giving birth, that could really make a lot of sense. They could have Steven Yeun there for that. And I think we'll see it. Honestly, I really think we will, because that's a huge opportunity that would elevate, whatever episode they use him in, and that would make it really special. It's unfortunate they weren't able to get him for the Season 7 finale, but that would have been even really cool to see as well, too. So even a couple times, to be honest with him, because his death in The Walking Dead is such a huge death. It's even bigger than Abraham's death, I'll say. Abraham's death is big, too, but Glen's death is even bigger. I mean, you have the baby on the way, you have what happens in the comics with issue 100 with Something to Fear, and it being adapted to the TV series, it's a huge turning point. For the comics, it goes from the first 100 issues to like, holy shit, the comic got to issue 100. That's issue 100, and then it brings it in kind of a new direction for the next 100, so to speak, or in the next, after that. So huge, humongous death, and to be honest, I'd even like to see him come back maybe a couple times if they're able to get him and do some hallucination sequences. I always like those, man. Pretty much every time they do that, it pretty much always works, I think, especially like if you have the episode with Tyrese's death, even though it's a pretty downer episode, really, really sad episode. Still, having David Morrissey come back as the governor and some of the others was really cool, and I hope we will see something like that for Maggie in the future, and they're able to get Steven Yeun. So I think they'll do it, and I look forward to seeing it. And if they don't, I'll be kind of pissed off and kind of let down, to be honest, because it just would be like, it'd be so awesome to see that. So yeah. TARC Weather says, Q&A Trev, do you think, since Glen died in issue 100 of the comics, that they may bring him back somehow in the Season 8 premiere, which is also episode 100 of the TV show? Also, do you think that it was kind of obvious that the Garbage Pail Kids couldn't be trusted? So for your first part of your question, so episode 100, while it is cool that the numbers kind of sync up in that way, I don't think it's, for a premiere, I don't know if you want to do a ghost or dream sequence, because you can only do it so many times. You can't do it more than maybe twice, maybe 3 times at the... I mean, even that, like 3 different episodes with him, you pretty much have to do it like maybe once or twice, I think. So when you do decide to do it, I think you have to use it well. And I think that the season 7 finale would have been a good time to do it, but a premiere is kind of tricky. A premiere is kind of like a hype episode for the season. You want to get people excited for the season. You want to get people into the season. It's not like a reflective type episode, and it shouldn't be. It should be about new things. It shouldn't be about previous things. So I don't think they should do it in episode 100, even though it would be really cool because 100 still, and it'd be something special, and I'd like it anyway, but I think... you might want to do it in kind of a regular episode or a finale episode, because that's just a nice thing to do to kind of cap it off, right? It's best to do those kind of sequences, I think, in terms of placement as a regular episode or as a finale. I don't think it's best to do that in a premiere where you're trying to get people stoked for the season. So, but yeah, either way, I'll take it. If it's all we could get, I would take it. It'd be cool. And it would make episode 100 really great if they were able to bring him back, in addition to everything else that would be in the episode, of course, because it should be a great episode. And was it obvious that the Garbage Pail Kids couldn't be trusted? Was it obvious? No, it wasn't. It wasn't obvious. It was something where... you got the name, so her name, Jadis and Judas, and people have brought that up in lots of Q&As, but was it obvious that they weren't? No, it wasn't obvious. Like if this was a new series like Fear the Walking Dead, where you didn't have any spoilers or anything like that, and it wasn't out there at all, it would be something that could be considered, but there was other options too that made a lot of sense, like for example, maybe Eric was a good one. A lot of people have brought up that maybe his fear would overtake him, and he would betray the survivors in order to gain Negan's favor for protection for him and Aaron. That could have made a lot of sense too. So obviously we didn't see them go that route, but that could have worked, right? So yeah, it's some of the way they went with it. It worked out pretty good. But of course you get spoilers in there and stuff like that too. And then people say, "Oh, it was obvious," you see, and it's like, well, it was out there. People knew about that, from it being spoiled and stuff. So it's pretty tricky. I don't think it was totally obvious, no. And I think most casual viewers would not have seen that coming. And it actually might have been a really great twist for casual viewers that didn't know anything about that. So that was pretty cool. But of course, it was also one of those things where you didn't know 100% if they could trust them. And kind of what is interesting to me is the first time I had heard about the characters in the show, I assumed they were villains. And then I was like, my first impression was, okay, they're in a junkyard, they're like this, they're kind of nasty, they're going to be villains, right? And then kind of as the show comes in, it's like, okay, well, at first they're villains, but then it seems like they're allies. And then they go back to, it's like, actually they were villains, pretty much all along, really, right? So it's kind of like your first impression is right in that case. So it wasn't obvious, but, it's something that you could determine, I suppose. Prime the Great says, hey, Trev, I hope you're doing great. My question is, now that the Garbage Group is allied with the Saviors, does Rick need the Oceanside women to win the war? So I don't think he needs them 100%. I don't think everything just comes down to numbers. I think, of course, strategy can be huge, and whoever gets the jump on the other can be big. And of course, when you're dealing with firearms and everything like that, obviously strategy can play a huge role, and kind of just how the battle plays out, how it unfolds. A lot of times defense can work out. Usually you'd say like the defending side might have the advantage if they know the assault is coming. But in that type of world, if they don't know it's coming, the person who's attacking actually might have the advantage. So we'll have to see how it all shakes down, but I don't think they need them, although it would be cool to see the Oceanside kind of come back in some way. I'm sure they'll include them somehow. It's just going to be difficult to see how they actually decide to do that and how they work that back in. Maybe Rick could approach them and ask them to join, since they may be outnumbered now. We'll see how it all works out, but I don't think he needs them, but they might be somewhat beneficial, because there is a good number of them that could fight. At least probably like 5 or 10, something like that, I would think, from what we saw. Henrik, Reed, but also he doesn't know if he can even really trust them, because it's like they stole their guns and attacked them and stuff, right? So they didn't kill anybody, but it was still like an assault and everything, and that's a traumatic experience for them for sure. Henrik Reeb says, Q&A, Trev, do you think Season 7 on Blu-ray will contain uncensored Negan lines or scenes? And I believe it will. yes, before the season started, there was some interviews where JDM talked about that a little bit, about him swearing around on set and stuff like that. And sometimes the cameras would catch him and stuff like that. So I think there's at least going to be a couple, but I don't know if there's going to be that many. I'm hoping the speech at the end has an uncensored version. So we'll see about that. I'm really hoping, and that's one thing too in the finale that I would have wanted to see that was a little bit of a letdown, is we didn't get Negan's full "we're going to war" speech. It was just kind of truncated. It was pretty small. It was just like, we're going to war, that's it. In the comics, that was a pretty big thing at the end of that trade. When I read that, I was like, oh man, I just read it over and over again, reenacted in videos and stuff like that, so it's fun. But yeah, I think we'll get at least a few Negan swearing lines and things like that. It should be great. Gar Productions says, keep posting, love your channel. So thanks, Gar. Yeah, I'm going to continue right on. I know, and this is the same thing pretty much as every year, and even during the mid-season breaks too. Obviously, discussing Walking Dead isn't as much fun when the TV series isn't on as when it is on. It's more fun when the TV series is on and we got new episodes every week. But yeah, absolutely want to continue. Going to continue, making the videos pretty much all year long. I do. And even if during the summer it might not be 7 days a week, it'll be, more often than not, I'll have a new video for you guys if you're interested. And of course, with Fear, we're going to do that, obviously. Game of Thrones will do that. And I'll have some other stuff this year, too. Better Call Saul going to do, of course, Gotham, things like that. So, just have fun with it, right? I mean, that's the name of the game. That's what it's all about here, is just to have fun. I mean, even the show itself is for entertainment purposes, so I enjoy it. I love it. So it's a lot of fun. Thank you for your support. Thank all of you guys for your support. And we'll definitely keep on producing for you guys, keep posting daily videos, episodes for you, and just have a good time. That's what it's all about, right? So Hut Boy says, my goal for next season is to try to avoid spoilers. So good luck with that, Hut. Let's see how that works out for you. Let me know how that works out for you when season 8 starts next year in October. Let me know how that works out, all right? Get back to me on that one. Ross McCaddy says, hey, Trev, Q&A. Why don't you do a Q&A about you? So I've done that before. I've done quite a few personal Q&As, that kind of deal. I guess I could do one again, this summer. Maybe I'm thinking about doing one like what it's like to be a YouTuber, that kind of thing, because I think some people are interested in that. And, there's a lot of people out there that, might want to try YouTube, that kind of thing. So maybe that's something I could do. I can kind of join what it's like to be a YouTuber with, more personal Q&A for you guys. So I'll let you know when that's coming up if I decide to do that within the next month or two. Brax says, Trev Q&A, what do you think is the absolute best safe zone the series has ever had? So the best location, the most secure location. The prison, the farm, Woodbury, Sanctuary, Alexandria, Kingdom, or the Hilltop, and all the other places that the group has been throughout. So that's a really good question, which is like the most, which would be the most difficult, or which one would be the most difficult to attack, which one would be the safest, so with regards to zombies and everything else. The ones we're seeing now are pretty great. Alexandria, I think, is pretty strong for sure. The prison wasn't bad too, though, because the prison had, the watchtowers and stuff like that. So it was pretty secure, and you have the fence up, which pretty much stopped zombies 100% from bothering, as well as most of the locations do have. Woodbury was pretty solid as well too. The farm wasn't. The farm was probably the least, I would say, because even just one simple zombie herd coming through knocked out the farm, so it wasn't much. The Sanctuary, though, especially with Eugene kind of tweaking things and setting things up, and kind of having an alarm system with the zombies there with the molten, metal on their heads and stuff like that. You might have to go with the Sanctuary as possibly being the most secure. Also, it's like a factory. So if you want to kind of get inside there, it's not that easy, right? Because they could lock the doors. You could have steel doors, stuff like that. That'd be difficult to get into. A lot more difficult than maybe Alexandria, where you kind of find a way to get over the walls and you're in. So I'd probably go with something like the Sanctuary. Kingdom's pretty solid too. Hilltop, not really. So most likely I go with the Sanctuary as maybe being the most secure location that there is in The Walking Dead so far, especially with Eugene there. I would say with him there, he he's going to close up any gaps. And actually, really, he's very useful for them, I would say, to be honest with you, in his current role. Monstrous Zed says, I kind of get the feeling that Michonne may be pregnant. Do you think that Michonne could be pregnant, Trev? So right now, I don't think it's necessarily the story. We already have, Maggie pregnant, so I don't think they'll do that yet. Eventually, they may do that, though, and that could be cool in a few seasons. But right now, I just don't think so. Next one's from Josh Riemann, who says, Q&A, Trev, do you think there should be more realistic suicides in The Walking Dead. The only deaths came from Jackie and Dr. Jenner, Season 1, Nicholas in Season 6, and most recently Sasha in Season 7. While the ones that are arguable are T-Dog and Merle, Seasons 3 and 4. The ones who were somewhat suicidal were Beth in Season 2, Morgan in Season 3, Andrea in Season 3, and Richard in Season 7. Thanks, to keep up the awesome work with the video. So this is something I touched on briefly, which is kind of psychologically what suicide is. It's it's something like with Sasha and how she has to go through that in the finale episode. I thought was really brilliant, because that obviously, even if you're doing it for others, as Sasha did, which makes her like an ultimate hero, so to speak, that she's able to do that for the team, to take the ultimate one for the team, which is her own life in that way. That's really hard to do. So do I think it's unrealistic? I don't think so, because, committing suicide is not something that would be easy for people to do. I mean, you have to hate life a lot, and you have to have pretty much no hope and have enough pain that your eros, your life drive, your drive, your will, your instinct to live is overtaken by Thanatos, the death drive. So you have to experience a lot of pain. You have to go through that, and it goes against its inner conflict is what it is, because everybody wants to live and wants to do that. They have that side of them, and then the other side, of course, is the opposite, which can be turned sadistically or masochistically inward. And, for people to actually commit suicide, to do that, as some of the characters have earlier, even if they kind of think about it, to actually go through with it and everything, I mean, that's is really dark, and of course, and I mean, it's something a lot of people would say, I just opt out. I would just do that. But I don't think it's that easy to just to actually do it. I mean, you see a bunch of zombies, and maybe it gets easier, but I don't know if I'd say it's unrealistic that not more characters have killed themselves. I think that it's something where some people would do it, would pull it off, but a lot of times you get people who would more kind of talk about it, but when it came down to it, it would be pretty hard for them to go through with it, because everybody wants to live, and I feel like that's normal for us as as human beings, or even as animals too, to do pretty much everything we can to survive, almost anything. Last one will be from BM or BWM54321. Says, Trev, what do you think about the scene between Sasha and Maggie watching the sun was about? I personally don't see why they showed us that. We already had flashbacks, and that one barely had any dialogue. I feel like it was just a bit of a time waster. They could have showed more speeches or anything really, and I agree with you that I would have liked to have seen the full speeches, and that would have been cool leading into All Out War, because this is a huge thing coming up, and maybe they focused a little bit more on the characters with Sasha and Abraham, and Maggie, which was, it was great too, but I would have liked to have seen the speeches as well there. So, it's a little bit unfortunate that they did cut that, or they had kind of the voiceover and that we didn't get to see it, but maybe the way they filmed it and everything, when they were editing it and putting it together, like, this just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't mesh well. So then they decided to do the kind of voiceover thing with Maggie and that. But it also ties the season in really nice. So the part with Sasha and Maggie, I mean, I thought it was kind of a good tie back into the beginning, because if you remember, she was kind of the one, Sasha volunteered to be the one to take Maggie to the hilltop. So Sasha, again, big sister. See, this is why Sasha's a really great character. I mean, how could you not like Sasha, right? I mean, just an amazing character, protector for the group, kind of like a field leader, steps up and volunteers to take Maggie there after what they had just seen and what just happened to Abraham and everything. So I thought it was a beautiful scene, because it kind of relates back to the beginning again. Obviously, they spent a lot of time in the show. You had the part with kind of like the rain and when they met Aaron and that there. There's just some really great sequences throughout the series. Some really great. All the characters have a lot of great interaction throughout the show. But I feel like with Sasha and Maggie, I mean, just I thought it was beautiful to get to see that, because she kind of volunteered to watch over. They were together at the beginning, and now they're together at the end, and they both had lost their respective, man. They, lost her husband with Maggie, and then with Sasha lost her love interest now. Another one, because Bob was killed off earlier, but now she lost another one here with Abraham, which we get the sense that she cares more for Abraham, or she liked Abraham more than she did with Bob earlier. So I thought it was wonderful. I mean, I thought it was really, really great. And maybe you're right, there's some other stuff they could have shown, but ultimately it's kind of like, what is The Walking Dead? Is The Walking Dead kind of like an action adventure zombie apocalypse type of story, or is it kind of a character-driven horror zombie apocalypse survival type story? And of course, it's more as kind of like what we've seen over the seasons, and even with the comic book series too. It's more about the characters than it is about the zombies. You know, if you want to see movies about the zombies, you can watch the Romero movies, and they focus heavily on the zombies and zombie concept, and even have some kind of special zombies in those. Whereas The Walking Dead is more about the characters themselves, character drama. So that'll be it for today's Q&A, guys. If you liked it, please don't forget to thumb it up below. Keep sending me your questions, and I'll have another one for you guys tomorrow. If enough of you send questions through, I'm sure you will. And those of you who are new and you want to subscribe, click that button. Don't forget, subscribe at the bottom left. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. See you guys.